Hi, you're watching the Times News. Today was a hot day in New York politically and legally. From this morning, all the media channels were focused on the appearance of the former American President Donald Trump in the court. I'll give you all the updates from Donald Trump's courtroom appearance from New York to Florida. But before that, I request you watch the full video so that you can see what happened all day today. Donald Trump started his day at Trump Tower, his residence in New York. He went to bed at 6 a.m. as he did inside the White House, maintaining a tradition. The New York Times reported that Trump began the day by reading the newspaper and watching the news on some media channels. His arraignment was scheduled for 2:15 p.m., but he arrived at the courthouse about an hour earlier. Trump left Trump Tower at about 1 p.m. and began his journey to the Manhattan Criminal Courthouse in Lower Manhattan. A trip that took about 30 minutes, but to speed up the journey, all the roads were closed to normal traffic, as you can see. Police in New York were on high alert ahead of Trump's court hearing. And many roads in the area were also closed. It was a historic day, as no former U.S. president had ever been inside a courtroom to answer criminal charges. Donald Trump enters a courtroom on the 15th floor of the Manhattan Criminal Courts building. His cross-examination began before Judge Juan Manuel Merchan. He did not say anything to the assembled media as he entered the room. Shortly after 14:30 local time, Donald Trump entered the courtroom accompanied by several members of the Secret Service. His face was expressionless, and his steps were heavy and slow. He sat in the front row for the action. It was very official. It was not a circus-like atmosphere. The judge presided in a calm and even tone and never raised his voice. He spoke to Donald Trump politely and calmly and firmly, making sure the former president understood his rights. Trump remained silent during almost the entire proceedings. He spoke only when he had to, either by pleading not guilty or responding to the judge when he addressed him directly. Watch the one-hour hearing in Rome. In response to prosecutors saying that President Trump was making inflammatory statements, his lawyers responded that they were disappointed and disturbed by the case, which they believed represented a gross injustice. The judge responded by telling defense lawyers, "I do not share your view that some of the rhetoric and specific language is justified by frustration." Notably, the judge said his warning about further rhetoric was a request, not an order. But he added that he would have to look closely at the issue if it comes up again. It was clearly a warning to Trump and his legal team to be careful what they say now. At one point, the judge respectfully but firmly reminded the former president that he or any of the defendants could lose their right to be present at their trial if they behaved in a disorderly or disruptive manner. At another point, as they were making their arguments, the prosecution mentioned that the defendant, Donald Trump, had made threatening posts on social media. He cited Trump's social media posts, including one that warned of potential death and destruction if he were to face criminal charges. Prosecutors said they were concerned about these actions. The case against Donald Trump mentions payments to 3 people, but the former president faces criminal charges for a settlement with one of them. Porn star Stormy Daniels, identified in charging documents as Woman 2, has been done as. Here's what prosecutors say. He mentions the infamous Access Hollywood tape that surfaced during the 2016 campaign, which showed Trump bragging that he would grab women by their genitals. After the leak, Trump and his campaign staff were concerned that the tape would damage his viability as a candidate and undermine his standing, particularly with women voters. Shortly after the tapes became public, AMI executives learned of another woman who alleged that she had sex with Trump while he was married. Daniels and Michael Cohen contacted. Cohen negotiated with Daniels' attorney to remain silent on the matter, to prevent the release of damaging information in the final weeks before the presidential election. Trump did not want to pay the $130,000 and instructed Cohen to delay as much as possible because, if they can delay the payment until after the election, they can avoid the payment altogether, because at this point it won't matter if the story goes public. But, with pressure mounting and the election looming, Trump agreed to pay and confirmed he would pay Cohen back. On or about October 27, 2016, Cohen paid Daniels' attorney by wire transfer. After being elected president, Trump is accused of paying Cohen falsely recorded reimbursements for legal services. In total, 34 false entries were made in New York business records to conceal the initial secret $130,000 payment, prosecutors say. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg, they say Trump claimed he was paying Michael Cohen for legal services in 2016. It just wasn't true, Bragg says. They say it was a false statement that Trump made month after month in 2017. For 9 consecutive months, the defendant held in his hands documents containing this key lie, he added. They allege that Trump signed checks for Cohen every 9 months. Bragg says Trump made these false statements to cover up crimes related to the 2016 election. Remember, Michael Cohen is a former Trump lawyer who admitted to paying porn star Stormy Daniels $130,000 before the 2016 election in exchange for keeping quiet about her past sexual relationship with Trump, which they deny. Trump was in court for just over an hour, where he pleaded not guilty to 34 charges. Judge Joan Merchant did not issue an order against Trump, but told both sides to be careful with their language and rhetoric. The judge ended the proceedings after about an hour. When it was over, Trump stood up and was immediately surrounded by his Secret Service detail. The former president then spoke quietly to his lawyers, but they were inaudible to the press sitting a few rows behind him. Then he turned and walked down the main aisle of the courtroom and through the back door he had entered earlier. He did not say anything to the press. His tone was serious. Trump left the courthouse without speaking to the media and headed straight to New York's LaGuardia Airport. Donald Trump is seen boarding his private plane at New York's LaGuardia Airport on his way back to his home in Florida. We are expecting him to speak at his Mar-a-Lago estate at 20:15 local time. Trump's legal team. Speaking to reporters outside court, Attorney Todd Blanche said the judge asked everyone involved in the case not to use language that incites violence, not just Trump. Another of Trump's lawyers, Joe Tacopina, said the unsealing of the indictment shows that the rule of law is gone in this country. He added, "While not everyone is above the law, no one is below it. And if that man hadn't been named Donald Trump, there's no way we'd all be here today." He declined to comment on whether Trump was fingerprinted or whether a mugshot was taken during the operation. Both supporters and opponents of Trump gathered outside the courthouse in Manhattan. It was the first time a former U.S. president faced criminal charges. So these are all the latest developments so far that I presented to you. If you like my news, so please subscribe to my channel. See you in the next video. Goodbye.